we're going to graph this cube root function. And to do that, a couple things I'm going to need to know and do. I'm going to kind of create an X and Y table here. And to do this, the hardest part is really to choose the correct X values. And the thought process I'm going to use behind this is I want to choose X values that give me easy cube roots to deal with. So the first three that I normally look for are, what X value would give me the cube root of -1, the cube root of 0, and the cube root of 1. So to start here, I'm going to start by plugging in -1, because when I do that, actually let me change colors here. I'm going to plug in -1 because when I do that, I get the cube root of 0. You see -1 plus 1 is 0. The cube root of 0 is just 0. 3 times 0 is just still 0. -2 is -2. And so my first point that I have here, I'm calling it like my turning point. It's going to be where that like S shape starts to turn. And so once I have this, then the rest of it's kind of easy because I usually am going to just shift over 1 unit for the most part. But really the idea here is I want to plug in an X value that gives me this cube root of -1. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in -2 next, because that gives me y equals -3 cube root of -2 plus 1 minus 2. So that gives me -3 times the cube root of -1, which is -1. That gives me +3 minus 2, which is just 1. So -2, 1. And then the last point I'm going to do here, again, you can do more than just 3 points, but for speed's sake, I'm just going to do 3 and know that like our graph is going to be some sort of S shape. But the next one I'm going to choose is an X value that makes the inside of the cube root +1. So that would just be 0. So I'd get y equals -3 times the cube root of 0 plus 1 minus 2. Cube root of just 1 is 1. So -3 minus 2, which is -5. And again, I could plug in more X values, but I'm just going to call this good and say like, hey, there's this general S shape going. The biggest mistake people make is thinking it looks like a cubic function and they point like the arrows up and down, which again, if you're making that mistake, then you should just be plugging in more points. If you understand the general shape of it, then you're good to go for cube root functions.